We've been talking about Pearl Harbor, and we do have a couple other Pearl Harbor survivors that we definitely want to have talk to us. But it wasn't just at Pearl Harbor when ships went down in World War II and when they needed protection. We have another gentleman here that, if I remember his story right, you were on a ship that went down in the Mediterranean, weren't you? Would you like to come and tell us about that? You can introduce yourself first. Save me the trouble.
My name is Kenneth Hathaway. I enlisted in the Navy 2 days after Pearl Harbor. I went to Treasure Island and then to boot camp in San Diego. I spent 4 weeks there. Then I went to gunnery school. 2 weeks in gunnery school, and then I was assigned to what they call the Armed Guard. That was gun crews on merchant ships. There was a lot of information that was never put out as far as the Armed Guard was concerned. I left New York on my first ship to go to Murmansk, Russia. We went to Scotland first, and this convoy that had gone to Russia prior was 31 ships. 10 ships came back. They held our convoy up 6 weeks while they were deciding whether they should make another trip to Russia. I was assigned to convoy PQ-18, which was the next convoy, and we went back from Scotland to Iceland, from Iceland north to Russia, Archangel. When we were about even with the north part of Norway, we were attacked by about 100 torpedo planes. The first attack, 16 planes, or 16 ships were sunk. I'd been a little bit lucky on that. The fact that we had spent 6 weeks waiting to make that convoy. I went to the armory in Glasgow, Scotland, and asked for more ammunition for our 4-inch 50. 4-inch 50 would only elevate to 38 degrees, so it couldn't be used as an aircraft gun. But the ammunition that I found was ammunition that had been used in World War I against personnel. The 4-inch 50 projectile had a fuse setting on it for seconds. Set so many seconds after the projectile left the barrel of the gun, the projectile would explode. When I said I was very lucky that I got that ammunition, on that first attack, I fired one of those shells from the 4-inch 50. It exploded in front of the aircraft, and the aircraft went down. Because of the amount of damage that it had done, the smoke around the area, all the planes that were next to that one went to the other side of the convoy, and as a result, we were not sunk. However, there were torpedoes that were discharged toward our ship, and the captain of the ship maneuvered the ship to the point where we were dodging those torpedoes. The captain received a letter of commendation from the King of England for the maneuvering of that ship and saving it. I made several trips to England and Scotland, 2 more to Russia, Murmansk, and a trip to North Africa. In North Africa, we unloaded and received more vehicles and 700 troops to go to the invasion of Sicily. When we arrived in Sicily about 3 o'clock in the morning, it was still dark, and at daylight there was 2 planes strafing the beach. The commodore of the convoy passed the word for all hands to hold their fire because there would be friendly planes flying over. We received that message several times during the day. About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we received that same message again. Hold your fire, friendly planes flying over. I was standing on the after gun deck talking to my gun crew. We looked up and saw these bombers coming, and one of my crew made the remark, with that many planes flying over, somebody sure must be catching hell. About that time we could see the bomb bay doors opening and bombs starting to fall. I gave the order to open fire. My gun crew was credited for knocking down 2 of those planes, but we took 3 bombs in the forward part of the ship, and the ship began to explode. We were loaded with a lot of that ammunition for the crew that we had, gasoline for the vehicles we had, and it was almost impossible to fight a fire. The ship was sunk. The gunnery officer of the gun crew was flown back to the United States, and he received the Medal of Honor. It seemed a little ridiculous to me that he should receive a Medal of Honor for somebody that done nothing but sit in the office while the rest of us were out firing the guns. However, when I finished that cruise, we were put aboard a transport and sent to Algiers, North Africa. And from there, we caught another transport loaded with German and Italian prisoners that were being sent back to the U.S. When I received back in the U.S., I took a 30-day leave and was returned to Brooklyn Naval Air Station, Brooklyn Armed Guard Center, for another ship. That ship made 2 trips to Russia, and before I made the second trip to Russia, we were at Normandy. So in all, I made 3 trips to Russia, several trips to England and Scotland, 1 to North Africa. My ship was sunk in Sicily, and I made a trip to Cuba to pick up a load of sugar and return back to the U.S. When the war was over, I wasn't eligible for discharge because I had signed up for 6 years. But my name came up and I accepted a discharge. I was sent to Alameda Naval Air Station for discharge, and I was there for 2 weeks. There were quite a number of men that were waiting for discharge that were signing up in the reserve. So I signed up in the Naval Reserve. I took my discharge. 20 days later, I was called to report to Oakland Naval Air Station. I was asked if I wanted to remain in the service, and so I questioned what kind of duty I was going to have, and it told me that they need a first-class bosun mate to be captain of the crash crew. That was a group of men at the end of the runway in the event there was a crash of aircraft. Reserve officers were flying on weekends to get their flight time in. So on weekends we were at the end of the runway, and during the week I was captain of the fire department. I had to do a lot of teaching of fighting fires to the crew that was at the end of the runway, and also the fire department. I trained some people in Oakland Fire Department how to fight fires with foam. Many people don't know, but there's only 3 things that really causes a fire. That's material, oxygen, and heat. Take any one of them away and the fire goes out. I taught the crew mainly to use spray from the water instead of a stream of water. That done 2 things. It cooled the air and it took care of the oxygen. After a short while, the fire chief was having a problem with his health and retired, and I was sent to the schooling for a little bit more fire education, and I became fire chief. The Oakland Naval Air Station closed in the latter part of 1954. I didn't want to go to another station, so I took my discharge as chief bosunmate. And that kind of ended my military history. Yes. Yes. No, we didn't have any losses. The fire that started didn't explode right away, and the captain gave the order to abandon ship. We already had the life nets over the side, so they all run and jumped over the side or took the nets, and nobody was lost.
Thank you, Ken. And I think this is another example when I said people continue to serve, which is a common thread that runs through everybody that's talking tonight, that, you know, when the war ended, they continued to serve in different capacities.